Sunlight danced across the lake's surface in brilliant shards of gold. Children shrieked with joy chasing floating balloons across the wide lawn. The christening party was in full swing, tables groaning with food, string lights glowing electric white against the afternoon haze. Someone had hung bunting across the pergola, and the whole scene looked like something from a magazine. I was laughing with Aunt Carol about the baby's unfocused eyes when Christopher appeared at my side. His hand gripped my elbow with surprising firmness, fingers digging slightly into my skin. "We need to talk," he muttered, his voice low and commanding, steering me toward the crowded patio. His grip felt possessive, territorial. My stomach clenched. Something was wrong. Christopher released my elbow and turned to face 40 relatives. His face was flushed, his jaw tight. His tone was sharp in a way I'd never heard before. "Everyone listen up. I have something to say." His voice cut through the chatter. "Jessica has made it clear she thinks she knows better than the rest of us. Ever since Mom and Dad passed, she's done nothing but criticize and divide us. She questions my decisions. She questions the bills. She questions everything." He paused, letting that sink in, scanning the crowd. "Effective today, she is banned from all future events here. Holidays, weddings, birthdays, everything. I'm done with the negativity." He nodded at our cousins, Austin and another guy. They stepped forward like bouncers, like they'd been positioned there in advance, waiting for this moment. No one spoke. Not a single person defended me. Aunt Carol stared at her plate, refusing to meet my eyes. Emma buried her face behind her mother's leg, frightened and confused. I walked to my car, heels sinking into gravel with each step. I could feel 40 stares burning into my back, the weight of their judgment crushing down on me. When I reached my car, I pulled away without looking back, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Midnight silence filled my apartment. My laptop screen cast sharp shadows across my kitchen table. The glow was cold and clinical. I kept replaying the patio scene over and over. Christopher's smug tone, Aunt Carol's averted eyes, Emma's frightened face disappearing behind her mother's leg. 40 people. Not a single one of them had defended me. Not even my own family. Tears streamed down my face, hot and bitter. I let them fall, let the rage shake through my chest. Eventually the tears slowed. My breathing steadied. The hot anger began to cool into something else. Something colder, clearer, more dangerous. I wiped my face and opened the county property records database. I typed the familiar lake house address. My hands were completely steady now. This was the moment everything would change. Page after page loaded. Liens. 3 separate mortgages signed by Christopher. Payment history showed defaults stretching back 18 months. Notices of intent to foreclose sat in bright red text on my screen. A cold clarity moved through my body like someone had turned off a switch marked grief. In its place was something sharp and focused and absolutely certain. He hadn't just mismanaged our parents' legacy. He was actively destroying it. One loan was marked personal business venture. $200,000. Another was a cash advance. $85,000. The largest was marked supplemental refinancing. $850,000. The biggest loan had been taken out 6 months after Mom died. 6 months after I'd asked him how we'd maintain the property with just the two of us. He'd been lying the entire time. I created a hidden folder named Lake, and began downloading every document, every lien, every signature, every proof of his betrayal. For the first time since the patio, something that wasn't quite a smile crossed my face. I whispered into the dark room, "You should have paid attention to the bills, Christopher." Late afternoon. The coffee shop was warm and crowded. I'd chosen the corner booth deliberately, far enough from the counter that we wouldn't be overheard. Mara stirred sugar into her latte. She'd become a real estate attorney. Of all the people I knew, she was the one who could help me understand what I was looking at. "Hypothetically," I said, keeping my voice level, "if a family lake house went into foreclosure auction, What would the buyer need to know? She paused mid-sip. A knowing look crossed her face. This is hypothetical, she asked. Completely hypothetical. She pulled out her phone and slipped into attorney mode. Okay. Foreclosure auctions. First, there's a timeline. Once a property goes into default, the lender files a notice of intent to foreclose. That starts a clock. Generally, you're looking at 3 to 12 months before the property actually goes to auction. I listened carefully, storing every detail. Once the auction is scheduled, it's publicly advertised. Anyone can attend. Anyone can bid. You need to register beforehand with the auction company, provide proof of funds, and you'll need a cashier's check for the full amount if you win. What about after you win? Ask carefully. Title transfer happens within 7 to 10 business days, Mara said. You'd be the legal owner before most people even knew the property changed hands. Once you own it, it's completely yours. The previous owner has no legal claim, no right to access it. You can change the locks, hire security, do whatever you want. I asked about security after purchase. She gave a knowing look but answered thoroughly. You have every legal right to hire security and change the locks. Once you own it, it's yours completely. Back home I opened my budget spreadsheet, transferred my entire work bonus into savings, and renamed the account New Start. I was $1,013,000 short. Thanksgiving arrived like clockwork. Christopher posted photo after photo. Same oak table, same heirloom china, same faces smiling in candlelight. Captions read, "Tradition continues," and "Family forever." I scrolled in silence, then closed the app. That week I started a second job tutoring high school math online. Every paycheck went straight into savings. I stopped replying to the family group chat entirely. When Mom's old bridge friend called asking if I was okay, I kept it light. Just focusing on work right now. Christopher sent a single private message. You're really going to ghost the whole family over one conversation? I read it twice, then deleted the entire thread without responding. The silence felt powerful. Every day I didn't reach out was another day he had no idea what was coming. Every paycheck I stashed, every dollar I moved into savings, every sacrifice I made felt like laying bricks in a wall, constructing something solid between his world and mine. The quiet felt like control. Felt like power. 3 months in, savings climbing steadily. One evening at dusk I drove past the lake house. I parked a half-mile away in a secluded turnout, pulled out binoculars I'd bought at a hunting supply store, and watched. Christopher was grilling steaks on the patio for maybe 10 people. I recognized cousins, family friends. Laughter drifted across the water on the cool evening breeze. Emma was there, running tag near the dock, her high-pitched giggles carrying across the lawn. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to look away. I raised my phone and began taking pictures. Time-stamped photos. The sagging porch steps that Dad had been meaning to fix. The overgrown rose bushes Mom once tended, now wild and tangled. He cracked dock pilings. Wood rotting from years of weather and insufficient maintenance. Clear signs of neglect everywhere. Each image was evidence. Proof that Christopher wasn't just stealing money. He was letting the entire property deteriorate. Back in my apartment, I added them to the lake folder I'd created months ago. I organized them carefully, cross-referenced them with dates, and added them to spreadsheets tracking every foreclosure notice, every missed payment date, every deadline Christopher had ignored. Each image felt like another piece of leverage I was quietly collecting while he partied on borrowed time. Mara texted late one night. Auction date just moved up. 6 weeks now instead of 4 months. My stomach flipped. I was still $42,000 short. No hesitation. No second guessing. That same hour, I listed my spare bedroom on Airbnb. Set the nightly rate at $85 per night. The first booking came in 3 days later. Within 2 weeks, I had 7 bookings. I simultaneously signed up for medical transcription work. $18 per hour to listen to doctors' voice recordings and type them into documents. Mind-numbing work. Eye straining. Fingers aching. but it was work I could do at night. And then I listed the necklace. The vintage pearl necklace my mother had left me. The one piece of jewelry I'd kept close to my heart since she died. I photographed it carefully and posted it on a luxury consignment site. Vintage pearl necklace, excellent condition, from estate collection. Asking $3,500. Sold in 2 days. The money transferred to my account. I watched it deposit and I cried. Not because I was sad to lose the necklace, though I was. But because the weight of what I was doing had finally landed on my chest. Heavy and real and absolutely irreversible. I canceled my streaming subscriptions that same day. Netflix, Hulu, Spotify Premium, all gone. I stopped buying takeout completely. Instead, I meal prepped every Sunday, ate the same lunch every day, made terrible instant coffee at home. Friends asked why I seemed so intense. I gave them the same easy smile. Saving for a house of my own. Big goals, you know. They laughed, thinking it was cute. They had no idea that the target was this specific property, this specific betrayal, this specific revenge. Christopher's birthday fell in early summer. Social media overflowed with images. Bonfire on the beach. Acoustic guitar. Everyone singing the same old songs we used to belt out as kids. Aunt Carol tagged me. Wish you were here, Jessica. We miss you. I stared at the photo of smiling faces lit by flames. Emma was in the middle, her arm around Christopher's neck. I quietly unfollowed Aunt Carol without commenting. No dramatic block, just removed. The family noticed almost immediately. Aunt Helen sent me a worried text. Are you really okay, honey? I replied once. Never better. Truly. Then I muted all notifications from the group chat. Later that night, Christopher posted a close-up of the Family First sign hanging above the mantel. I screenshotted it and filed it away. The irony was almost poetic. Him claiming ownership of everything sacred while the walls literally crumbled beneath him. 2 weeks before auction. I met Mara at her office after closing. She walked me through every step. Bidder registration, proof of funds, cashier's check amount, post-sale title transfer timeline. I asked about hiring private security for the day I took possession. She nodded approvingly. Very smart move. That same evening I sat with a calculator and my bank statements. The savings account was at $89,000. Airbnb income had added $8,000. Transcription work contributed $6,000. The necklace sale brought $3,500. I was at $106,500. Still $993,500 short. But I had one option left. The 401k loan. Early withdrawal meant 30% in penalties. But the remaining balance would get me to about $140,000. Add that to my savings and I'd have $246,500. My hands shook as I authorized the final transfer. The savings account finally crossed the target line. $246,503. I stared at the balance on my screen, closed my eyes, and pictured myself walking up that driveway holding the new deed. For the first time the future felt solid instead of stolen. Auction morning arrived gray and cold. Rain threatened on the horizon. I stayed away from the courthouse. Too much risk Christopher would spot me there. Instead I waited in my car 3 blocks away. Hands gripping the steering wheel, phone on speaker. Mara's colleague, a woman named Sarah who specialized in foreclosure acquisitions, was bidding on my behalf. I'd never met Sarah in person, but I trusted her completely because Mara trusted her completely. She understood what was at stake. The auctioneer's voice crackled through the phone connection, tinny and distant. It was happening in a county courthouse 50 miles away, but I could hear every word clearly. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might be sick. Going once. The auctioneer drawled, pausing to look at the gathered crowd for any other interested bidders. Silence. Just silence and the sound of my own breathing. Going twice. Another pause. Longer this time. Everything felt suspended, frozen in this moment. The auctioneer's gavel came down with a sharp crack. Sold to bidder 17 for $1,197,000. My stomach lurched violently. The price was higher than the $1.1 million I'd calculated. Much higher than I'd hoped. For a moment, panic rose in my throat. But then it steadied. The property should have fetched $1.4 million on the open market. The auctioneer had mentioned that. Lots of people were scared of the foreclosure stigma. Fear kept the price down. This was still a victory. Sarah's voice came through the phone, calm and professional. Congratulations, Ms. Jessica. You're now the owner of the property. The auction company will handle all the paperwork. You should have the deed recorded within 7 business days. 7 business days. 168 hours. And then everything would change forever. I drove home with the windows down, cool air rushing through my hair, my hands shaking with something between terror and triumph. The plan that started as hurt on a patio had just become reality. Title cleared. The deed was recorded in my name alone. Black text on official paper, my signature, the county seal, everything legal and binding and absolute. The paperwork arrived by courier. I held it in my hands and for a moment I couldn't breathe. Name. On the deed. For the lake house. I changed nothing publicly. No announcement. No celebration. No social media post. Christopher kept posting about our lake house, teasing Christmas plans, sharing decorating ideas. I let every post stand. Each invitation felt like another unwitting confession of ignorance. He was planning events at a property he no longer owned. Behind the scenes, I hired a discreet locksmith to rekey every door and window lock. I scheduled professional security camera installation for right after New Year's. 4 cameras positioned around the perimeter. Motion sensors. 24-hour cloud recording. The installers assumed I was simply the new owner moving in. I wanted everything to look ordinary until the moment it wasn't. Christmas Eve group chat lit up with excitement. Christopher typed, "Doors open at 4 p.m. sharp. Bring your appetites and your ugly sweaters." Photos of wrapped gifts and cookie trays followed. The energy was building. This was supposed to be a healing moment, everyone said. Getting the family back together for the holidays. I read every message, then opened my email to the title company confirmation. The PDF showed my name as sole owner. I drafted a reply I never sent, yet. Subject line. Regarding your planned event. Dear family, I wanted to give you advance notice that the lake house property is no longer available for your planned Christmas gathering. As of date, I am the legal owner of the property. The property will not be accessible for events. Further details to follow. Jessica. I read it 5 times. Then I saved it to my drafts folder instead of sending. Patience had carried me this far. A few more days wouldn't hurt. December 26th, quiet morning. My phone buzzed with a text from Christopher. The first direct message in over 2 years. Heard through the grapevine you might be softening. Doors open if you want to apologize and come home for the holidays next year. Let's move past this. I stared at the words. The condescension was breathtaking. Apologize. As if I had been wrong. As if standing up for myself had been the betrayal, not his public humiliation. My thumb hovered over the reply button. For a moment I let myself imagine telling him the truth. Watching his face when he realized. The panic in his voice when he understood what I'd done. But that wasn't the plan. I blocked his number without a reply. The silence between us grew thicker, heavier, more final. No longer felt like punishment. Felt like peace. New Year's Eve, just past midnight. I drove to the property alone. No cars in sight. The road was empty, snow falling light and clean. I used the old spare key I'd kept all these years. The key I'd held onto without really knowing why. I let myself in and stood in the darkness, just breathing. The house smelled of pine needles and Christopher's familiar cologne. Everything was exactly where it always was. The furniture hadn't moved. The photos still hung on the walls. Family pictures from before everything fell apart. I walked slowly upstairs to Dad's office. I sat at the desk and opened the laptop. My new property management account was already set up. I navigated to the Wi-Fi settings and changed the password to something he would never guess. 23 random characters. No pattern. No connection to anything he knew about me. Then I saved it and walked back downstairs. I locked the door behind me and walked back to my car. Ready. Deeply satisfying. February brought our cousin's daughter's engagement announcement. Christopher had immediately planned a huge April celebration at the lake house. Invitations were printed, designed, hand-addressed in elegant script. Catering company booked months in advance. Speech notes drafted. One invitation arrived at my apartment. Hand-addressed. My name in someone's careful calligraphy. Inside was a short note in Christopher's handwriting. Jessica, we miss you. Let's put the past behind us and celebrate together. The lake house is everyone's home. Come back. I kept the envelope unopened as evidence. The date was circled on my calendar in red ink. April 5th. 12 weeks away. 12 weeks until everything he'd built came crashing down. Early March. I met with a private security company in their downtown office. The space was corporate, professional, intimidating in the right way. I explained calmly that I had legally purchased a foreclosed family property and anticipated possible resistance from the previous occupant when I took possession. I need people who can remain calm and professional, I said, but who won't hesitate to enforce the law if necessary. I need people who understand property rights and legal precedent. They quoted rates for armed standby on move-in day. Background checks, security escorts. I asked about legal liability. They explained my absolute rights as the property owner. Once the deed was recorded, the house was mine. Completely. He had no claim to it whatsoever. I signed the contract without hesitation. Every signature felt like another layer of armor. The trap was almost set. April 5th. Engagement party day. Perfect spring weather. Overcast but not raining. Cool breeze coming off the lake. Christopher arrived early to decorate. I'd predicted he would. He always did. He needed to control every aspect of the event. He pulled into the driveway at 10 a.m., an hour before he'd told everyone to come. His truck looked freshly washed. He probably felt good. Probably felt like he was doing the right thing, hosting the family, keeping the traditions alive. I watched from my vantage point across the lake, binoculars pressed to my eyes, the high-zoom lens of my rented camera trained on the front entrance. His key slid into the front door lock and stopped cold. He frowned, jiggled it, pulled it back out. What the? I could see his lips move. He tried again. The key wouldn't work. The lock was impenetrable. He pounded on the door once. Hard, like he could break through if he just tried hard enough. Nobody answered. Christopher called a locksmith in a hurry. I could see him pacing on the driveway, phone pressed to his ear, his voice tight and stressed. The van pulled up 20 minutes later. A technician stepped out, clipboard in hand, looking bored. Just another lockout call. He inspected the cylinder carefully, ran his fingers over it, tried his tools. Then he shook his head slowly. This is a restricted high-security lock, the locksmith said, loud enough that I could hear across the lake. Only the current owner can authorize a key. You'll need to contact the property owner. Christopher's voice cracked. I am the owner. The locksmith shrugged sympathetically. Look man, I understand this is frustrating, but the title on file says otherwise. You need to contact the current owner and have them authorize a key, or you need a court order. I can't help you here. He got back in his van and drove away. Christopher pounded on the door with both fists. The sound echoed across the water. Desperate, furious, completely futile. Neighbors began drifting over, phones already out. Someone was definitely recording. I pulled up slowly in a rented black SUV. Expensive. Professional. Intimidating without being aggressive. My heart was pounding as I put the car in park. Two security professionals stepped out behind me, both in dark suits, both with careful, controlled expressions, both completely calm and professional. They didn't speak. They just moved into position, present but not threatening, ready for anything. Christopher spun around, eyes wide. his face registering complete confusion. He'd been expecting a locksmith or a neighbor or anyone but me. Jessica. His voice was confused, shocked, not yet afraid. He didn't understand yet. I walked forward calmly, heels steady on the gravel driveway. Every step was controlled and deliberate. Every movement was calculated. The security guard stayed 2 steps behind, close enough to act if needed, far enough away to let me have the floor and deliver this moment myself. This property was foreclosed due to unpaid mortgages, I said, my voice clear and level and completely devoid of emotion. I wanted him to hear the certainty in my tone. I wanted him to understand the finality of what was happening. It was sold at public auction 3 months ago. I purchased it legally and now hold the recorded deed. I lifted the document folder so he could see the official stamp, the recording number printed in black ink, my name as the legal owner. This was the moment he realized everything had changed. His mouth opened slowly, then shut without a sound. His face was going pale, the blood draining from his cheeks as the reality of his situation crashed down on him all at once. Cars began arriving for the party. Family members started stepping out of their vehicles. Confusion on their faces at first. Then they saw me on the porch steps and Christopher standing red-faced in the driveway. Whispers spread like wildfire. Someone said, "Oh my God." Aunt Carol pressed a hand to her chest. "What in the world is going on?" I raised my voice just enough to carry across the lawn. Every family member could hear me. Everyone watching could hear me. Christopher lost the lake house to foreclosure because of multiple secret loans he never repaid. I bought it at public auction. As of today, the rules here belong to me. Christopher shouted, "She's lying. This has been in our family for generations." I handed stacks of photocopied foreclosure notices, mortgage statements, and default letters to the nearest relatives. Pages moved from hand to hand like a wildfire spreading. Faces drained of color as they read Christopher's signature on every damaging document. The foreclosure notice, the missed payment letters, the lien certificates. "The foreclosure was filed 18 months ago," I said, still completely calm. "The notices were sent to this address. The default letters arrived here. The final notice for auction came 2 months ago. All of it is public record." I held up another document. "This is the auction company receipt, showing the sale price of $1,197,000. Someone murmured, "He really signed all this?" "Yes," I said. "He did." I turned to face the gathered family. At least 80 people now, maybe more. They stared at me like I was someone they'd never met. "Anyone who wants to stay and talk is welcome inside," I said. "Anyone who chooses to leave with him is free to go." The silence was deafening. Then Aunt Carol stepped forward. She walked up the porch steps toward me, past Christopher into the house. Mom's younger sister followed. Then one of my cousins. Then another. Half the group hesitated, then followed Christopher toward the parked cars. He screamed over his shoulder about lawyers' lawsuits. "Making me pay for this." I gave a small smile. "See you in court then." The remaining relatives stepped onto the porch behind me. The divide was visible, permanent, and honest. Weeks passed. The family fractured quietly in ways that no amount of therapy could probably repair. Some sent apologies by text, acknowledging they'd been wrong to side with Christopher without asking questions. Aunt Helen wrote, "I'm sorry. We should have asked you what was really going on." Others sided with him completely and went silent, a choice that said everything about who they were. The legal threats came as expected. Christopher filed a baseless claim attempting to challenge the sale, claiming fraudulent acquisition and family coercion. His lawyer was expensive and aggressive. The judge dismissed it in 30 days with prejudice. No countersuit followed. The legal threat evaporated like it had never existed. I stayed quiet through all of it. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I just let the truth stand on its own. I hosted a small, peaceful Easter on the lawn. Just close family. People who valued truth over loyalty. Aunt Carol, Mom's younger sister. Old family friends. We sat under the oak tree where Dad used to read the newspaper on Sunday mornings. Someone brought a pasta salad. Someone else brought wine. We ate and talked about the good memories. Real ones, not the sanitized versions Christopher used to share on social media. Emma asked if she could help me plant flowers in Mom's old rose garden. I said yes immediately. We spent an afternoon in the dirt, planting perennials and roses and flowering shrubs. Emma got more dirt on herself than in the ground, and she was absolutely delighted about it. Laughter returned, softer and more genuine than before. 1 year later, the seasons had cycled through. Autumn leaves, winter snow, spring blooms, summer heat, all of it moving through the property and through me. String lights twinkled above the dock. A modest reunion gathered on the lawn. Only those who chose honesty and accountability over blind allegiance. The rose garden bloomed in wild profusion. The dock had been repaired, the porch steps rebuilt, the house slowly returning to its rightful state. I stood at the water's edge, watching fireflies blink across the dark lake. The old ache had dulled to a faint echo. Sometimes I thought about Christopher, about what he'd lost, about the choices that had led him to this place. But mostly I thought about the weight being gone. Belonging no longer depended on shared blood or family loyalty. It was built on mutual respect and truth. On people who chose you not because you were related, but because they actually knew and valued who you were. I raised my glass toward the water and whispered, "Welcome home." 2 years had passed. The property had become a haven where the family that remained could gather and heal. The rose garden had tripled in size. The dock now had new railings, sanded smooth like Dad would have done it. The house had been updated, not to erase the past, but to honor it and move forward. I'd made an offer on the house that Christopher was forced to sell to cover legal fees and debts. I'd bought it at a steep discount. He'd moved to another state. Nobody I knew had seen him in months. Sometimes I walked through the halls at night and felt the presence of my parents. Not in a ghostly way, but in the way that spaces hold memory. The banister Dad had built. The garden Mom had loved. I wasn't just protecting a property. I was protecting a legacy. The story that began on a patio with humiliation had ended on a property line with justice. Not the kind of justice that destroys, but the kind that builds. The kind that heals. The kind that says, truth matters. Accountability matters. And sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply living well.